Hello, my name is Inely Cesna. I'm an attorney, a mediator, and a coach. And I'm here today to talk to you about mastering the essentials, communication skills that every mediator must have. So I'm going to share my slide with you. Here we are, and we can get started. So I've been mediating for about 10 years, and I've been an attorney for 20 years. I have specialized in intellectual property, and I also work with community and family mediation. Communication skills have been, I think, the most important skill I've learned, not only as an attorney, but also as a mediator, as a parent, and as a person in general. So in this presentation, I would like to hit on three topics. One is setting the tone of any conversation, but particularly setting the tone of a mediation with paraverbal communication. The other one is understanding when a communication is healthy and when it is unhealthy. Conflicts not always is bad. It's not always bad. Conflict can generate a lot of possibilities and a lot of solutions. It's the chaos before creation. And so it's important to recognize when we are in a healthy arena and when we cross the threshold into the unhealthy conflict. And finally, we'll learn about 12 skills, I think, of good habits, good communication habits that you can use in your mediation with your clients, with your family, with your partners, all around. Those are great communication skills to have. So let's go right into it. Setting the tone. Setting the tone is about paraverbal communication. Paraverbal communication is everything that it's non-vocabulary related. So it includes the tone of your voice, the pitch of your voice, the speed and the pace within which you speak, the volume that you use, your vocal variety and the melody, and also the posture and the eye contact. All of this makes a difference. And it actually, in all of these elements, we are sending messages, an often unconscious message. So as a mediator, we should be very aware of the message that we are sending through these aspects of our conversation. What message I'm sending when I start speaking fast? What message do I send when I speak low? And when I use different vocal varieties or even by different postures? All of this creates an impact in the communication. And you can see that when you talk to other people. So let's look at what unhealthy and healthy communication is. Of course, the unhealthy is a debate, it's confrontational, and the healthy is a dialogue. It's a back and forth, it's an exchange. In the unhealthy side, we are looking for flaws. We are looking to respond, to create an argument in response to what other person is saying. In a healthy arena, we are looking to listen, to understand, to discover, to put ourselves in the other person's shoes. An unhealthy conversation ignores feelings. So I bypass my feelings, the feelings of others, and what the emotion part of the message is. And while a healthy conversation is courageous enough to touch the feelings that are involved. And I would like to say, emotions is one of the foundations of conflict. Conflicts happens because of emotions, but most of us still deal with conflicts as if emotions didn't exist. And that's something we need to look into. So an unhealthy conversation ignores the relationship aspect of it, while the healthy relationship it builds relationship. It's based on the relationship, and the relationship becomes one of its most important aspects. The unhealthy focus on the problem as you. It's like pointing the finger, while the healthy focuses on the problem as the it. It's a third something, and we can unite in front of this problem. We can come together to solve this problem. It's a different perspective. On the unhealthy part, we defend ourselves. We defend our views, and we are all about being right. We are all about defending our positions. And in the healthy side, we want to search for perspectives. We want to brainstorm what other ways we could see this, what other angles this can be understood, and what other alternatives are there in the table. The unhealthy conflict assumes that only one side knows the solutions, only one side is right, while the healthy part of a conversation assumes that many people can get to better solutions, that together we can have a more whole and entire perspective of the matter. So, and the unhealthy, as I mentioned, creates polarized views, right and wrong, and good and bad, and beautiful and ugly, while the healthy part of the conversation allows us to admit mistakes, allows us to apologize, allows us to repair what's been done or what has happened in order to create something new. The unhealthy aspects of conversation creates resistance. It creates resistance to change, create resistance to look at things in a different way, while the healthy way of communicating is to be open to change, open to what can be creative and new solutions to move forward. And finally, the unhealthy assumes that only one side can win, while on the healthy sides, we assume that all sides can win, that there is an opportunity to learn deeper, to go further, so that we can understand what's really underneath the positions of every party. So an unhealthy conversation is confrontational. It's based on confrontation, while the healthy conversation is based on carefrontation. We are there, we are communicating, we are talking because we care. We care. Either we care about one another or we care about the situation, so that we have to face one another in order to deal with that situation. And it changed the tone of what we do together when we look at it from a carefrontation rather than a confrontation. So based on this understanding, I would like to present several tools, several skills of communication excellence. And we're going to see one by one as we move forward. So let's start with intention articulation. What is intention articulation? It's the ability to express, to translate into words what our goals are, what our values are, what are the desired outcomes. And this starts to plant the seeds of what we are trying to create. So in order to do that, especially as a mediator, we have to be very clear, what is my purpose? What is my direction? What values do I want to instigate in this communication? I have to create sort of like a framework for myself, and then allow myself to be free within this framework. And this framework becomes my values and my goals and the ways in which I translate that into my spoken words, or my written statements, or even my body language, my facial expressions, my paraverbal communication, as I mentioned earlier, and even symbolically, things that I can do symbolically to represent certain things, and the way I hold my hands, or the way I look at someone, or I may express the feelings that I see someone expressing. So those are things that we use to articulate something inside that has to do with compassion, that has to do with authenticity, that has to do with connection. And so we start translating all these values, these purposes, these desired outcomes that we carry inside as a mediator into the outer. We start to make them tangible through our words, through our actions, through everything that we do, through our writing, to everything, the environment that we set up, the snacks that you may put on the table, whether you offer a drink or not offer a drink, the way you arrange the room or you arrange the seating in the room. And so every detail counts as an expression of our intention as a mediator. The second skill, I call it the matching principle. And it's very much a mirror effect. The mirror effect is a common psychological concept of projection. We are usually projecting on one another. And so when we match somebody else's energy or body language or vocabulary, we start to identify. There is an unconscious identification that happens. And so if someone is in front of you crossing their arms, you may very well just cross your arms together with them. It not only allows you the opportunity to position yourself in their body position, so you're experiencing that body position together with them, but it also creates a mirror effect that translates into alignment. It gives us a sense of alignment, and it can make the communication more efficient. And we can do that through our body language by using words that the other person is using, by using a similar intensity, or by mimicking their emotions. If they're sad, we are sad. If they're laughing, we are laughing. And even the intensity of our laughter can represent alignment. So if somebody tells a joke and they're laughing super loud, and I just smile quietly, it doesn't create connection, doesn't create an alignment. But if I can laugh to the same extent that they are laughing, there is a unifying force there. There is a communion that happens at that space. And that's what the matching principle is about. The third communication skills, I used to call it a small talk. And then I realized there's nothing small about a small talk. So now I call it casual connection. It's the spontaneous talk that usually will happen pre-mediation or when the parties first arrive in the room. It's a way that we can highlight commonalities. It could be about the pets that we have or the places that we went to travel. It could be about anything. But it becomes an icebreaker. It becomes informal and relaxed. It also humanizes the interaction. It shows that we are more than the issue that we are about to talk, that we're about to enter. We are more than that conflict. There is a human part of us outside of that specific context that may be a context of conflict. So we can approach this in many ways, but I always say let's approach it with openness, with optimism, with innocent curiosity, and with relaxation, just spontaneously, not taking it too seriously and not making too big of a deal around that. But I like to point it towards two directions. Either we go with the old, how are you? How have you been? How are you doing? And from there, you can find a nice compliment that you can make. Oh, nice shoes. Where did you get it? Or you can comment on the context, the weather, the coffee, or the room that you're on, and just ask opinions. How do you like the weather? How do you like the coffee? How do you like this room? You know, or just go into general information. Do you know what time it is? So do you know how the traffic is today out there, or anything general in terms of the context. So that's one way we can initiate casual conversation. Another way is to look into our shared experiences, our shared humanity. And it can go into the how, who, what, and all of that. So, how did you like the speech this morning, or how did you like coming here today? How was traffic for you? Who told you about this office? How did you get here? Just become curious, right? Why did you enjoy it? What did you enjoy in it? And any other common interests that you can find. Those are ways to build casual conversations, and those casual conversations can really help you in the way of a resolution in the end, because it creates a connection that goes beyond the issue at hand. The third one, the obvious one, is active listening. And what does it mean to be listening actively? It means we are not divided. And the picture here, shows the opposite of active listening. And nowadays, we have our cell phone ringing, we have someone on Zoom, we have someone coming into the room. There's so many interactions in so many dimensions, and it's very difficult to be present. And active listening requires that kind of presence of undivided attention, of turning off our cell phone, finding a space that is uninterrupted, that is private, and be present there with our bodies actually positioned towards the speaker. And so you can position your body towards one speaker and then another speaker, and that creates an energetic connection, very genuine and very receptive curiosity. And you can intervene occasionally with, I hear you, tell me more about that, and so forth. We'll talk more about interventions in the other skills that we'll present here today, but focus on content, which is what vocabulary are they saying? What do they mean, with the vocabulary that they are using? Look for the paraverbal cues. What's the tone, the pitch, the speed of their voice, the tonality, the vocal variety they are using. Whether you can see any emotions. Sometimes, most of the times, emotions are not spoken. They are dramatized. They are performed. And so you pick emotions by the performance, not so much by the words. And then the meaning underneath all of what they're saying. Sometimes one person may talk about fear in a way that makes them run away. Another person may talk about fear in a way that is exciting. They want to go towards it. And so understand what the words mean for that specific person and go for that meaning. All right, the next communication skill is called framing and explaining. And I like this picture here of one person inside a wagon, and the wagon is moving. And the other one says, wait, hold still. And the other says, I am still. Because inside the wagon, the person is still. But outside the wagon, it's a completely different context and completely different reality. And so framing and explaining means we position ourselves in the same context. We shape that context before we deliver the message. So we explain what's coming, we explain what's next, we explain why we're doing this and so forth, so that the person is prepared to receive that message from the same way that I am, from the same place where I'm delivering it. And so in that we can then explain the perspective. We can use a specific language that helps create a common context. We can control the flow of that context by highlighting certain aspects of the message, downplaying others. We can use examples, and we can define terms ahead of time. All of this helps to set up the context so that the message is better received. Our next communication skill is open-ended questions. Open-ended questions are any questions that have to be elaborated to be answered. They can't simply be answered with yes or no. It requires a deeper reflection. And those can be questions related to intention, about beliefs and preferences and values, And so it's usually, tell me more about this. What does this mean to you? What do you value the most? You can ask about meaning of the certain words. What does fear mean to you? What makes you afraid? What are you afraid of? Right? You can ask those intention questions. You can ask the how questions. How did this happen? How could this be solved? How could the future look like? How could I help you? How could I be of service? The other ones are the who questions. Who was there? Who did it? Who could you trust? Who could you rely on? Who could be supportive to you right now? And the other one are the what's. What do you suggest? What would it be like for you? What makes sense? What's the most important thing to you? And so, see, this all opens up to curiosity, opens up to elaboration, opens up to an opportunity to dive deeper. The where is also another way of another line of questions. Where it happened, where would you suggest to meet, where would it be reasonable, where it would be possible for you, and the why. Why did it happen? Why would you like this? Why do you prefer this way? Why do you believe this is possible? Why is this important to you? So intention, how, who, what, where, why. These are opportunities to deep dive into what's underneath the situation. The next communication skill, we call it perception checking. And that's an opportunity to check our understanding of what the other person said. And it avoids misunderstanding, right? So if I'm constantly checking, if there is any misunderstanding, it's going to be from the last time I checked. So it's a habit that it's good to be constantly, regularly checking in. Am I getting what you're saying? Am I understanding this correctly? And the most important part of this communication skill is the confirmation. So it's like, I hear you saying blah, blah, blah. Is that accurate? Is that correct? It seems like you're telling me this and this and that. Is that true? Please correct me if I'm wrong. I just understood you saying this and this and this. Is that right? So you're always confirming in the end that your understanding is correct. And then the other person has the opportunity to say, yes, that's exactly what I meant, or no, this is not exactly what I said. What I mean is blah, blah, blah. And then they can correct from there on. And it's important to point out that this is different than mind reading. We really want to avoid read the mind of someone else. And that happens when you go like, well, I heard you say this, and that means blah, blah, blah. So I'm interpreting what someone else said according to my interpretation. And that interpretation may or may not be what the person that spoke it intended to say, right? So from what you share, I understand blah, blah, blah. Maybe that's what I understand, but it may not have been what the other person wanted to say. And so we are not mind reading here. We are perception checking to make sure that what we understand is what the other person really meant. And so we want to utilize those confirmation expressions in the end. Is this correct? Is this accurate? Does this translate what you're telling me? And always get that confirmation. The next communication skill is permission. Permission is an opportunity to create a culture of consent, a culture where the other person feels respected. There is an opportunity for collaboration. It invites openness and willingness because you're asking for permission before you offer something. You're also checking if the other person is ready to hear what you have to offer. And if they're not, it's better not offered anyway. So let's stop, let's wait, let's work with other tools before you bring the suggestion. And I also, it allows for trust and teamwork when we offer for permission. Do I have your permission to suggest something? Would you be open to hear a suggestion? So all these ways of checking for permission creates a connection, creates trust, creates alignment, creates an environment of psychological safety. That's what you want to cultivate as a mediator. The next communication skill is called offer considerations. So you're not only asking for permission to bring suggestions, but you're also presenting your ideas, your concerns, your proposals as a consideration for them to consider. That brings empathy. It brings clarity and understanding. It's like, here, I'm going to share. It's not an imposition. It frames, the idea as a contribution, not as a conclusion. And acknowledges the other party's involvement in making the decision, the other party's determination, right, to agree or disagree or change or propose something else. And so it encouraged teamwork and mutual reflection. So the idea is to say something like, may I offer a few considerations here that can help us move forward, right? Here's something that could be worth considering. It could be interesting to consider, blah, 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 right? These are ways in which we introduce considerations. And here's some tips and tricks for this. Is, of course, the paraverbal communication. This is a non-imposing tone. This is really like a let's work together kind of tone with opportunity for reflection, choosing the right timing, choosing the opportunity when the person has already expressed, has already brought forward what they have to bring forward, and then they are ready. They are ready to look for options, and be aware of the paraverbal communication, not only ours, but of the other person too, so that we can sense when the opportunity for considerations are starting to open up. Another important communication tool, I call it the smooth silence. Smooth silence. And I call it smooth because it's a silence that it is strategic, but it's also spontaneous. It's the moment to take a breath. It's the moment to wait. Why am I talking? Do I need to talk? Is it best to talk? So it's a moment to really strategize. Interruptions can be very disturbing. They can be used strategically when the other party, is negotiating with you and really wants to break the line of thought. And so we want to avoid interruptions if we really want the other party to bring forward their line of thought. If we are curious about understanding what they have to say, we want to offer them the gift of our silence and our attention so that they can express. Now, silence sometimes creates discomfort. People may not welcome silence. They may need to feel the need to fulfill the silence. The silence is disturbing because the silence takes us deeper. And so knowing that, a mediator can use silence in a very strategic way to allow for opportunities for reflection, to highlight important points, to highlight questions that deserve to be taken further, to highlight some crossroads in the mediation. Just stay and pause. And it shows confidence also and presence. Even in making a proposal, you can use pause. This is what I propose, and pause. allow people to breathe, and then bring your proposal, right? So silence can help us not only self-regulate, it allows that breath, and that breath allows us to calm and to come with a different paraverbal communication. And so it's important to use that pause before we answer questions, or even after asking questions. You ask questions and you pause. When there is a vague or a strategic point coming up, or when you would like to encourage some reflection and some deep elaboration. And now just a word of caution here. We do want to avoid silence that is distracted, that it's, like your body is here, but your mind went somewhere else. That kind of silence can signify disconnection and rejection. And that's not what we want to do as a mediator or as a good conversation partner. All right, our next communication skill is apology. So what is apology? A lot of people have resist to apologize because they feel, well, if I apologize, then I'm agreeing with what they're saying, then I'm making them right and I am wrong. Not necessarily. An intentional apology is an act of acknowledging that there is harm, not necessarily that the harm is as the other person is saying, but I'm acknowledging there is a harm, there is a misunderstanding, there is an unmet expectation here. And so apologies can be used very strategically, especially when trust is damaged, right? When the interaction is emotionally charged, because people don't expect an apology at those moments. And so it can help dismantle them, right? When there is a misunderstanding or an intended consequence. And it's also a great way to model constructive behavior. Of course, you don't want to apologize all the time. You don't want to overuse this because, right, every strength overused becomes a weakness. You don't want to turn this a weakness, and this applies to all of our communication skills here. This is not about overusing, it's about strategic use of these communication skills so that they enhance what we're doing. Overuse of apology can become a weakness. So how do we do an apology? What is an effective apology? First, we want to acknowledge the impact, especially the impact caused on the other person. I can see that what I said caused hurt, and I'm sorry for that. Or I can see how hurt you feel, and I'm sorry for that. I can see how disturbing the situation is for you. I'm sorry you have to go through that, right? The other one is ownership without defensiveness, is no need to shift blame. So if I was responsible, I just, okay, it wasn't my intention. I didn't see it coming, but I take full responsibility for how it came across, and I'm sorry. But if it's not my fault, I can just say, I hear how this has been a horrible experience for you, and I apologize that this is happening right now. I feel very sorry that you have to go through that, right? So whoever the blame may fall, there is a situation here that doesn't need any flowering, it doesn't need any disguise. We can look at things the way they are. And third, understanding the other person's experience. I understand why you're upset about this. I understand why this matters to you. I understand why this is important. And then commitment to do better or to repair. So if I did or said something, I can say, I'm sorry, I will try differently in the future. I will try something else moving forward. But if I'm not the one to blame, I can just say, look, I'm sorry you have to go through this. I hope I can be of service in repairing the situation. I hope we can come up with a resolution here that will help you deal with this unfortunate situation. Yeah, so just offering some kind of hope. And then the why. The why apologize? Because it diffuses intention. It invites responsibility and accountability, right? It's not an agreement of the fact. An apology is an acknowledgement of the impact of what happened. It's really a sign of leadership. And I think it was Mandela that said, apology is for the strong ones. The weaks don't apologize. The weaks don't know how to apologize or to forgive. That is for the strong ones. And so it takes strength to acknowledge, to take responsibility, and to apologize. But it also builds a new road forward. It builds a new opportunity moving forward. And I think the last of our communication skills is gratitude. Gratitude recognizes effort, acknowledges progress, and humanizes the interaction. And sometimes it's the last thing that the person is expecting, especially people that come for mediation. They come in their contracted state. They are in the middle of a difficult situation. And so every little gratitude is planting a seed. Thank you for taking the first step to resolve this matter. Thank you for reaching out. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. There's many ways we can express that. But usually when one of the parties take a risk or they're vulnerable or they express some deeper emotions, we can follow that with gratitude. Gratitude is kind of like positive reinforcement. It's almost a way of saying, please do more of that. I want to see more of that. It models that openness, that collaboration, and it validates the emotional labor that it is to be part of mediation. So how we express gratitude, it can be with actions and words, simply saying, I appreciate your openness. I appreciate your sharing that. To do it authentically, really be sincerity is very important, because it's very easy to pick up unsincere apologies. Most people can see that from far away. So we really want to be sincere. It helps rebuild rapport. It helps rebuild connection. And it's also important to balance it with professionalism, right? Thank you for your patience in waiting while we draft the agreement. Thank you for your cooperation in this matter. Whatever it is, it's just, it helps us connect from a professional way and a balanced way, as we're in this together. We are doing this together. And finally, the why of gratitude, the reason for gratitude is because it builds trust. It builds respect. It builds, it not only disarms the defensiveness and the hostility, it sometimes is what people least expect when they are in conflict, is to hear those seeds of gratitude, but it starts to build that psychological safety, and it builds bridges, also builds opportunities. So here is a summary of all that we talked about. Those are the key takeaways for our presentation today. So for intention articulation, it's to lead with that clear intention. For matching principle is to mirror, is the awareness that mirror builds trust. It's to humanize the connection through casual conversations, to small talks, to listen beyond words, to clarify and not assume things by perception checking regularly, to ask and not tell, right? Don't assume things. Ask with open-ended questions so we can deep dive into what's underneath. Create a culture of consent through permission, to offer and not impose. Bring considerations into the table, to honor silence, the smooth silence in a dialogue, to repair with sincerity through apologies, and finally, to acknowledge one another through gratitude. So to finalize, I'd like to leave you with some reflective inquiries. Which of these skills do you already use intuitively? How do they show up in your mediation? So you start observing yourself, create a greater ability to self-observe. Which skill do you tend to avoid or forget, especially when you are under stress? And why might that be? Why could it be that you forget that skill under stress? And what would it look like for you to practice those skills that we tend to forget more consciously? One suggestion that I often give to people is pick one skill and just practice that skill for a week. Journal about it, track. And the end of the day, did I use that skill? How was it when I used it? And even if you didn't use it, it's okay. Just by remember that you didn't use it, you are already, starting a whole new neural pathway in your brain towards using that skill. So pick a skill and play with it for a week. And then next week, you pick another one. That's my recommendation. I hope this was helpful to you. This is a short bio about my journey as an attorney, a mediator, and a coach, and the founding partner of my firm, the Institute for Next Level Law and Leadership. And here's my contact information. Thank you so much, and I wish you the best.